Nobody wants to sit down and watch somebody's 18-minute highlight, right? Find your best 15 to 20 plays. You got a Power 5 play. Put that Power 5 play at the front.
You want to have your best plays at the very beginning. It's the first play that gets you to the second place, the second play that gets you to the third play. It's not also just about what you think might be your best plays. It's what are the best plays that will resonate with college coaches that can offer you a scholarship.
If I go into the high school, the first thing we're going to do is ask your high school head coach, like, how is he as a person? And if you are button heads with your high school head coach, that's a red flag.
You're listening to the Football Scholarship Podcast, the playbook for parents and athletes who want to secure the best football scholarships possible. From securing a D1 football scholarship in the SEC at Ole Miss at just 5'7", 150 pounds, myself, to helping 83% of the athletes I mentor achieve football scholarship offers and 42% going Division I, I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me and my co-host Brian Overton, who has 15 years of D1 college football recruiting experience, as we interview top experts, successful athletes, and discuss current recruiting trends. Together, we'll help you navigate the recruiting process so you too can achieve your dream of running out of that tunnel in front of 100,000 screaming fans. Let's just start with your program, how you go about, building your program and the recruiting process and even just kind of finding players that would fit what you're looking for.
So, one thing that, obviously listen to a bunch of the other guys who you guys have talked to and something that I've sort of sat down, you're having to keep a staff together to understand that, hey, we're still going to be here. I'm an alum of the university. I've had a really good experience of my time being at McKendry. Carl Pelker was my head coach. Mike Babcock came in right after him. And then obviously me. So in the history of our program, we've had 3 head coaches. And through all of us, it's been very similar of the fact of every single one of us has a type. What a McKendry football player is they're a physical kid, mentally tough, competitor. What we've added in this new iteration of what the program is and it's very much into the same sort of thing of what every other Division II, Division I, FCS, FBS level has is we have a type. We have a height weight profile. We have personality traits that we look for in our guys. But the one big thing that we really want to be able to do is we want to get live action padded eyes on our recruits. So we do a really good job of recruiting in the last 4 or 5 years. We've taken over the Metro East as sort of our backyard. And, schools that some people might know are East St. Louis. Obviously, it's a gigantic program, nationally profiled, top 10 in the country right now. And so they still play in a really quality league in the Southwest Conference with schools like Edwardsville, Belleville East, Belleville West, Alton. We got all those schools that are right down the road with us, but we got a ton of really good, high quality, smaller school 4A, 5A in Illinois, which is sort of middle of the pack with the rest of the states that you have. Althoff won the state championship last year right down the road from us. Deer Hill was the Gatorade National Player of the Year, and he's going to Oregon right now. At the same time, they had Colden, who's going to Boston College. They got Jason Dowell, who is going to Mizzou. Well, we signed 2 kids from that school because of the fact of they have quality football players there, but it was a 1A school last year. It's going to be a 3A school. But what we were able to do was sit down and get eyes on them. So we really want to find ways to get padded eyes. I know that a lot of kids go to these mega camps, they go to these prospect camps, where you're just running around, for lack of better words, the underwear Olympics. You've played college football, I've played college football. You got to have pads on to play this game at the highest level that you possibly can. And that's the thing that I think is really important for all of us is to see guys play football. When I was here and I played, and it's the same thing when Coach Babcock was the head coach and when Coach Pelker was the head coach here, D2 football is pretty simple. If you're the most physical team, you're going to win 9 out of 10 times. And so we got to see the physicality from these players at some point in time. And yes, we can get it off the film. But a lot of times, we're watching, in the state of Illinois, we're watching upwards of 10,000 kids. You get the greater St. Louis area, we're watching another, 5,000 kids. So you're watching huddle highlights to go ahead and make sure you get it down. They're going to put their best plays out there. We got to see these guys with that level of physicality in person where we can get our eyes on them. And it's really great. O-line deal. You went in the trenches. You look at the Great Lakes Valley Conference that we're a part of. Team that's won it the last couple of years is University of Indianapolis. We've had Lindenwood that made the transition to be an FCS school as well. Those guys were really good in the trenches. And if the kids can get out to padded camps, O-line, D-line camps, those offensive and defensive linemen, like they got to get out there and get the pads on and start, showing their physicality. That's the biggest thing we can.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to have it where they want the 6'4", 6'5" kid. But if the 6'2" kid, the 6'1" kid is a fire hydrant and he's getting after it and he's got a whole heck of a lot of nasty, that's going to get a lot of guys' attention at the level that, we play at, and that a lot of the chances they have to get recruited at is, go out there and show that. That's the biggest thing for us is I think that we fell into a rut as a program for a while there where we were looking for the prettiest guy on the block. You know what it is. We're always trying to get the prettiest girl at the prom to go and take a dance with you. And they were missing that most natural and tangible that everybody's looking for, which creates the quote unquote program kid, but that's the kid who ends up being the second or third team All American, or first team All Conference, which is having a lot of that nasty to him, a lot of that physicality, a lot of that where you might run a 4.8, but if you're going to put your face on something, football's gotten away from it a little bit. And we got to get that back into our program because those are the kids that are going to help you win.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, man. I think like, I feel like every level, especially on defense, it's like violence. Who's going to put their hat on the ball? And obviously, you're a former player, linebacker, and you had a lot of success as a player too. You're not just a player. So,
Not a ton. We don't want to talk too much about that,
but I'm saying like it's interesting because I talk to a lot of coaches, right? And like you're coming from a little bit of a different perspective because you were a player, So you brought up camps, and it's an interesting topic. I try to share as much as I can with parents about camps and how prospect camp, individual camps can be extremely valuable. Going to bowl games for recruiting might not be as valuable, right? So just kind of really trying to educate them on that. But you brought up something interesting, and I actually share this quite a bit, which is like, especially for evaluations, right? Where parents are like, oh, I want to get an evaluation of my son at a camp. And I'm like, yeah, coaches can evaluate your son, but you don't play the game in shorts and a t-shirt, right? And so it's not the same evaluation you might get in shorts and a t-shirt that you get on your game film. And what you're saying is you're kind of taking it to a whole nother level, which is like, yeah, we're going to watch your game film to make sure it's worth our time, but we're actually going to see you in person in pads. So how do you rep? Do you not do camps and instead you spend those resources to go to schools and make sure you're at games? Like do you, when the kids come, you do padded camps? Like what does that look like?
So we're fortunate with where we're at. So we're in Lebanon, Illinois. We're 20 minutes east of St. Louis. About 30 minutes away from us is Lindenwood. And Lindenwood's got one of the best mega camps. Coach Sturger does a great job. They get a ton of kids over there. We're about trying to market our camp properly. So they go Friday, Saturday. We're going to have our camp that Thursday right before it because we know we have kids coming from the Chicagoland area, from southern Missouri, from southern Illinois, from Kentucky. We have kids who are working their way to come up. Most of those parents try and get their kids in one of those earlier sessions, because that's when most of the Power Fives are there and all that kind of stuff, right? So they're all trying to get those kids to those camps. So we're going to have our camp the night before. We don't test 40s. We don't test broad jump. We don't test any of that kind of stuff. What we'll do is we have a alumni who runs his own sort of performance center, and we have him come out, sell his product, and get the kids stretched, get them warmed up, have them do some movement drills with those guys. We do old-fashioned county fair. So like the things that are the most important for us is can kid turn, and it sounds crazy, but can you turn is one of the hardest things that I think that you can find at the Division II level because you're going to have somebody who fits a height weight profile, but they're a little bit stiff. You're going to find somebody who doesn't fit a height weight profile, but they can turn. Lindenwood only goes padded for their mega camp just for their offense and defensive line. We go padded for every single position across the board. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, defensive backs, all of those guys are padded, and we work some level of physicality into the drill work that we do. We get really good numbers on that, obviously, from where we're at. We get guys that we already have ranked from us going out during the spring and building relationships with the high school coaches. We have those guys that are local guys who come in. But we have guys that, we reach out to from areas that are sort of on the periphery of our sort of homegrown talent that we try and grab in here that come on down, and we get a chance to watch them work out, and we put them in pads, and it gives us a chance to see, all right, yeah, okay, how are you going to run a fade when you actually have press man where a guy got something to grab on you? Like, can you actually get off that press? How are you going to actually be able to play press when you can't just do the two-hand jam and stop the guy at the line of scrimmage because he's got those extra layers on there? For our linebackers and our running backs, we do some of the open field tackling stuff. Obviously, it's not live, but put them into a thud situation of, okay, like, how do we get you guys to where you can get into a tackling position? How do you play with some level of physicality to break that arm tackle when the guy's not in that position? You know, obviously O-line and D-line, they're always in pads for the most part at these camps nowadays. So you get the good physicality from those guys. But putting us in a position where we can get a padded eval, where we get them not all the way to live, but we get them to a thud tempo, and we can see, all right, are you going to chop your feet? You know, everybody loves using the words "come to balance" nowadays. Are you getting to that point where you're 5 yards away and you're not closing that distance, where you're creating that conflict area where you're not going to be successful in? Like, and those are the things that we're able to do at our camp that I think is great for us. I think that every coach that is in a state that allows kids to put pads on, they got to take advantage of it, because you're able to find out, are those guys got that mentality and the physicality to close that distance, to accelerate through contact, to show you that physicality that is going to translate to Saturdays for us. And we've had a lot of success with it. I mean, our camp, we've been doing this camp the same way around the mega camp the last about 3 or 4 years, and we've offered upwards of 20 to 25 kids, and we signed about 15 to 20 of those kids every year that we offer at that camp. Now,
Wow.
don't get me wrong, there's a lot of leg work that's done on the front end of it so that we can get to the point where we can get it done. But being able to get that really good, strong evaluation, and there's guys that are on our board and that we're really high on that come to that camp that sort of get knocked down a little bit. And then we spend a lot of our resources when it comes to the recruiting side. How can we see them at other comparable camps to what we just put on and get a chance to see them and see how they do in the compete level and see what they're doing? Like, we're really fortunate in the state of Illinois. We have 4 directional schools that hold really good camps that we can send our coaches out to see those guys at the FCS level. And that's what we're all doing at the Division II level. We're recruiting the FCS Division II type kid that wants to go to those camps so that we can see them compete against other FCS Division II type kids. And
Yeah.
we've had a lot of really good success with that. We've honed in on it, you know, this last calendar year with us as a new staff stepping in on a few of these things to do a little bit better job of our type, you know, our prettiest girl at the prom, as they like to say, and being able to find a way to get that kind of kid to commit to come to McKendree University.
Yeah. No, I like that, dude. And those are good numbers. And those are so it's really interesting because you said before the camp there's a lot of leg work. And one of the things that, you know, obviously with the athletes that that follow, like our core thing is teaching them how to market themselves and get in front of coaches, right? Instead of all this crazy, you know, softwares and services, it's like it's crazy. So we're teaching these kids how to do it. And so let's say a player, and the most important thing and the first thing they've got to do is get evaluated to know what grade, what level are they playing at, right? If they're going to reach out to you, coach, they got to be D2 FCS, right? Now, there might be some NAI guys that they might spend 10% of their time trying to shoot their way up if they're a 27, for example, and they're trying to work their way up, and they could project to be Division II if they work on a few things, for example. But these players that are really interested in the program, and they want to get your attention, right? And they want to potentially come to a camp to prove themselves, and they're grading at that D2 FCS level, but you guys don't know about them yet. What's the process for them to get an opportunity to get their film seen by a coach and maybe get an invite to your camp? Like, how does that camp invite process work? What does that look like?
So the biggest thing for any recruit, in my opinion, is to put together a 2 to 3 minute film. Nobody wants to sit down and watch somebody's 18-minute highlight, right? Find your best 15 to 20 plays and put it out there and make sure that they're splash plays. Like, and so, you know, we all get, it doesn't matter what coach you are, we get a litany of emails that we come from kids all over the place. And I'm going to watch your first minute and a half, your highlight tape. And if in that first minute and a half, there's nothing that sort of grabs my attention that says, hey, I got to move you on to our next set of coaches, or a recruiting coordinator watches and says, hey, I can move you on to our next set of coaches. That's the biggest thing. So a lot of these guys, they sort of put their film together based off of how their season's going. So like game 1, I'm going to put my film. Don't do that. If you got a play that's an exceptional play, like you might not be a Power 5 guy, but you got a Power 5 play. Put that Power 5 play at the front, because that's going to get us to watch the next clip. That's going to get us to watch the clip after that. And it's structuring your film the right way and putting a lot of that on your high school coach, because at the end of the day, if your film's good enough and we like you, we're going to call your high school coach, because that's going to be that personality eval to make sure that you fit. Like, you're a guy who loves football. Like, we got to know that you love it. We got to know that you love to compete. So we're going to go directly to the source, the person who's around you the most often. And we got to get that really good splash play at the top. So, like, we use Twitter, X, whatever we want to call it nowadays, right? Like, and we use
Right.
email, and we do all this stuff, and we do, of course, beating the bushes, getting out there with our feet and walking over there and meeting the coaches and building those relationships with those guys as much as we possibly can. But it's got to be something that grabs our attention. And too often, some of the best clips that we end up watching for some kids, and there's a young man that's on our team, very under-recruited kid, height weight profile, should have put himself at a FCS, FBS level. He's about to be a senior, so I can say this now, so he's not going to get the transfer portal, all that fun stuff, right? So, like, he's got all those things. His best, he didn't put together highlight tape. Like, we had to go watch game-by-game footage of this young man. And the first couple of games, like, there's nothing on there that gets you excited. You know, you're like, all right, I mean, he's a good football player, but he had a game against a team that's down the road from us that we actually had some coaches at. They're like, I remember that guy. You know, he popped. He's got some really long runs. He had some explosive plays. He had the ability to show some knockbacks, some explosivity through his knees, hips, and ankles, the things that we're looking for defensive players. And he has it on that film, but, you know, we had to work to find it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and to me, if you're a guy who is outside of a recruiting area of a university, it's your job to make it easy for us to say, hey, we want to recruit you. Because if we got to do that extra work to find those splash plays for you, it's going to be really hard for us to recruit you. But if in that first, 30 seconds to a minute of where we pop on that film, there's that level of explosivity. There's some splash plays. There's guys who are, making some, like, okay, why is this kid interested in us kind of questions.
If you're already spending thousands on personal trainers, nutritionists, private schools to help your son live his dream of playing college football, but he's not getting the exposure he deserves, and you don't want to let him settle for average, then you're going to absolutely want to be at this live training that I'm doing, where I'm going to share with you exactly what you can do to help your son to start getting 5 responses from college coaches every single day, from how to properly set up his social media profiles, to when and how to post, to actually send the right messages to the right coaches so that they actually respond, and how do you respond when they do respond. So you don't have to spend thousands of hours trying to figure it out because you probably don't have the time, and so that you have everything you need to help your son be successful. So you're absolutely going to want to leave there. I'll leave a link below where you can register. Look forward to seeing you there.
That gives us a better chance to recruit outside of our sort of area that we have. And like every other Division II school, we all want to put the fence up about 2.5 hours away from where our campus is. But if there's a guy that's, 3.5, 4 hours away, maybe a state or two away, like, there's going to be some questions we ask about, like, okay, why is this kid not recruiting? So if we go west of us, we have the MIAA, which is one of the best Division II conferences in the entire country. And if that kid's got a highlight tape that he's sending to us and he's not getting recruited by those schools, we're asking, why is he not happening? And then that's where we obviously look at height, weight, grades, all that kind of stuff. But if the film says that he's a Division II football player, we're going to continue to recruit on him. But if we got to wait to the 3rd minute of your highlight tape, it becomes really difficult for us to say that you're a guy that, we want to sit there and, spend that time to get to that clip where, that's your best clip. Put it at the front, I'm a VHS guy. That's when I was coming out with. We had to make VHS and DVDs. And I knew that the best clips that I had, the 60-yard run, the really big hit that we had against the guy that was going to Michigan State, like, I put that at the front and I sent it off to every single school in the country that I possibly could, because that's what I knew was going to be what was going to get them to watch the rest of the clips that showed the fundamental football player that we were. And so, like, that's the struggle, and, like, that I think a lot of these kids have, is that they think it's a good play, but that's not what we're evaluating off of. And your high school coach, 9 out of 10 times those guys ask these questions to us as coaches. I've been recruiting the Metro East here for the last 8 years, and I have really good relationships with those coaches, and they ask us all the time, like, what is it that you're looking for? And we tell them. And then obviously those guys put those clips at the front when those coaches make those highlight tapes, because they know that that's what we're looking for, and we've done a good job of recruiting their kids. So, like, it's one of those things where find your best play. Like, don't be afraid to have some level of confidence and some level of cockiness. Like, hey, this is the best play I had all year. This is going to be the first play I put on there. and have it
Yeah.
so that the coaches get something to draw them in to go from there.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, man. Like, obviously, you've got to have your game film in the right order. And I think the big thing I want parents and players to take away from this is you want to have your best plays at the very beginning. And he said something, it's the first play that gets you to the second play. It's the second play that gets you to the third play, right? Really, really important. And so then you said, but it's not also just about what you think might be your best plays. It's what are the best plays that will resonate with college coaches that can offer you a scholarship, right? Like that can offer you. Because I had a coach on here and he was like, man, I was watching this linebacker and he went straight. His first play was he went straight up the middle, unblocked. It was a sack fumble, took it to the house. And I was like, and the coach was like, it's cool, but he's supposed to do that. I want to see him go up, shed multiple blocks, then go sack, fumble, take it to the house. He's like, that wasn't what I wanted to see. And so just having somebody, like you said, whether it's your head coach, but the challenge there is not a lot of head coaches have coached in college or know specifically what to look for, so they have some challenge there. So get your film evaluated by somebody who's offered people scholarships, that knows what they're looking for. And then from there, then it's like, okay, cool. Now let's get the plays in the right order. Now let's send that out and get it in front of the right coaches. Because like you said, you have a kid, I mean, he's an FBS, potentially FCS, FBS level playing at Division II. Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, that's a rarity, but there's hundreds of thousands of football players that are good, tens of thousands that are really good, that just don't have their tape set up. And when they send it out, nobody's watching it. So like that is a critical first step, man, of like not only setting the tape up, but knowing who you should reach out to, right?
Yeah, without a
What
doubt.
divisions are you, honestly?
So
Right?
the big thing that I think is like everybody's got those really good plays of when you're unblocked, and I don't want to take shots at plays that you make when you're unblocked because you got to make them when you're unblocked. We call it unblocked unproductive all the time. You're unblocked and you don't end up making the play. But it's those things of like, all right, do I look explosive in this play where I'm unblocked? Like, does it show the explosivity through the all three levels that you need to have as a defensive player? Like, there's plays all the time where wide receivers are completely wide open, they go and score a touchdown. Like, do you look like you're explosive and all that? And I think that a lot of the times what happens with kids is like they have explosive, like all these kids got a explosive play. I will say this: every single high school kid that I've ever watched has at least one play where you're like, all right, that kid can play Division II. But in reality, like there's the accumulation of all of them that don't. You got to find that one play that sticks out that gets the coaches to continue to watch. Because I've never ran into any coach at any level that's not going to at least put the film on of what a kid sends to him. Like even before me and you got on here, we got done with some stuff as a staff, and I was sitting here looking through emails, and I got like 9 or 10 kids who had sent me emails today just about what their film was. And their first couple of plays are just very generic type plays, and they're outside of our recruiting area. But there's one kid, I'm not going to say who he is, that had a really good explosive first play. And it's one of those things like, all right, well, he's shown that he's got the ability to do it. So we've passed him on to the next coach to get them a chance to look at it and have as many eyes as you can. Because one thing that I want every kid that's getting recruited to understand this is that just because one coach on staff doesn't like you, another coach might. And if that other coach does, he passes it on to the next coach. And it's a democracy in a lot of these staffs of where it comes to, can that kid play at your place and can he fit into what your system is? And if the answer to that is yes from the majority of them, that's the ones that are going to get a best chance to get recruited.
Right. Those are the ones that are going to get the nod. So that's a good point, man. So let's say a lot of schools use the area coach, the position coach, the coordinator, the head coach, recruiting model. Do you all use that, or is it kind of, how does that work within your team?
So, one of the benefits of being here for as long as I have been is the fact that I've seen how our staff has continuously changed. And, one of the great things about what McKendree University is, it allows us to really advance things forward in what we want to do on both sides of the ball. So, like, we lost our offensive coordinator a little while ago, but we were able to promote from within from there. But what that has done is helped us to the standpoint of like we start with areas, everybody pretty much does. but we group recruit our top guys. So we have our own ranking scale, everybody does, and we have a certain number where we say, all right, so this is the cutoff that everybody on staff has to talk to. So we'll have everybody on the offense recruit wide receivers, quarterbacks, offensive linemen, running backs, quarterbacks. Like they all recruit that kid. One, I think it's something that makes a kid feel like he's wanted when you get a chance to hear from the 4 or 5 position coaches that you have on your side of the ball. But then if you do have a coach who ends up leaving, whether that's the person that was the position coach or the area coach, that guy's already had conversations with who you might be slotting into that spot. So we'll have, in essence, if a kid's one of our top players, we'll have all 10 of our coaches that we currently have on staff talking to him at some point in time, so that we
Dang,
have a
okay.
relationship with him. He knows who every single one of the coaches is on staff. When we get him on campus, when we do a home visit, it doesn't really matter who it is. He already has a relationship with that coach because he's talked to him at some point in time. It's just because of the volatility of what this profession is what we believe in here is that if that kid gets a chance to talk to every single coach on staff, if somebody does move on to a bigger job or a better opportunity for them and their family, we already have a relationship with them with somebody else on staff that we can say, hey, now you're the point man on this with this kid that we know we need to get on signing day to make sure he becomes part of our program.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That's interesting. So, um, how do you organize that? Like knowing which player, like it sounds really good. I'm like, man, because I'm very
So
OCD maybe. I'm like, how
yeah,
do you organize
trust
that?
me, the same here. Like the thing that our coaches got to deal with is I'm a bit of a micromanager. Like it just is what it is. So we everybody's got these fancy systems nowadays. Whatever recruiting system it is, whatever you do to build your roster out. Like we're still a little old school. We use Google Docs, and we rank our guys based off of what we feel like they are financially worth it within our program. And we get, once again, there's a cutoff point where we say, hey, these guys you can just handle as an area coach. These guys are the ones you need to handle as a position coach because they're a little bit lower on our board. But the top 25 to 50 guys at each position, every single coach is reaching out to at least once a week. Once we get out of camp and we get into a little bit of our downtime during the season, those Thursdays and Fridays where game plan set, we already know what we're doing. We got some of our younger coaches looking a week ahead. All right, so like now you got a little bit extra time where you can reach out to recruits. We're going to have, about 200 to 250 guys on offense, 200 and 250 guys on defense that every single coach is going to spend 2 to 3 days reaching out to. Road games are a great thing for us in terms of the recruiting aspect because we're sitting on a bus. So when we're on that bus, we're going to give each coach a list of 100 guys that you got to reach out to, text, Twitter, whatever you got to do to reach out to them so that they get a chance to hear from us. We might have one guy when we're going on a road trip hear from all 10 coaches on our staff. And that's our recruiting coordinator's job to just go off the system that we already have in place to say, hey, these are the 10 guys that we need to have everybody on staff talk to. Here are the 100 guys that the offense needs to talk to. Here's the 100 guys that the defense needs to talk to. Reach out. It's just one of those things where it's just sort of natural selection. You're going to hear from those 100 guys that everybody on the offense or defense needs to talk to. You're probably going to hear back from closer to 50 to 60 of them. So you're having 50 to 60 text conversations through there the entire time as you're sitting on a bus as we're driving to, Fayette, Iowa, or we're driving to Indianapolis, or we're driving out to Kansas City. But it gives us something where we're not just sitting on the bus falling asleep as a staff. We're actually working to build those relationships and cultivate them just in case, we don't want to have it happen as a program, but, I feel like we do a really good job of hiring quality coaches here. And if they go ahead and they get a chance to go to a different school, that kid's not losing his primary point of contact because he's got enough point of contacts that we have on staff to be able to go from there.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. That's a good model because I mean at the end of the day, coaches do come and go. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like it's a bad thing. It's just it's the volatility of how it all works. So that's interesting. Okay. And then so when someone reaches out to you and they get added to this Google Doc, right? Like what's that process of them, moving up the ranks, so to say? How
So
does that work?
it's to how we do things here. It's like we talked about. It's really important to find a way to get that in person eval. You can't get it with everybody. Like, that's just a fact of life. There's only so many Friday nights the kids are playing football games in, and you're going to be able to get a chance to look at them. But we do a
Right.
really good job of building and cultivating relationships with the high school coaches. So, it's 2026 right now. Every single coach has 26, 27, 28 on the list that they hand out to us. So if you're going to go out there, you're going to watch a game, don't just watch the one or two kids that are at that game that we say that are 2026s. If you see a 27, you see a 28, get an eval on that guy, tell us where he's at, and go from there. If they're from outside the area that we get a chance to get eyes on, all right, well, we are, once again, we're fortunate with where we're located. We're located right outside of St. Louis. If we want to go to, we have a lot of really quality mega camps that we have opportunities to go and see kids in person throughout their entire time of getting recruited from essentially a sophomore to a senior. We got the Chicagoland Showcase. We got the one here in St. Louis. We got the one in Indianapolis. We make trips down to Memphis every once in a while. So, like, not just wasting time as a coaching staff, being able to get those in, and we do a really good job of taking notes on them, communications that we've had with them, making sure that we have all that information. But what those guys really got to do once they get added to that list, I think that sometimes kids feel like at the Division II and the FCS level, it's all based off of what your junior year is. That just can't be what the case is, because there's a level of maturity. Guys hit growth spurts. Guys all of a sudden get a different
Yeah.
level of commitment to the weight room. All of those kind of things that make them have that jump from their junior to their senior season. And what we got to do a really good job of is, if we get to the tail end of our season, obviously we have that week where we're going to go and have our exit interviews with our players. We try and get those knocked out as quickly as we can so that we can get to a point where we spend the rest of that week. Hey, let's watch the 4 week, the 6 week, the 8 week, the full season. If the kids got some playoff stuff, let's watch that and get a reevaluation on these guys that we might not have had as our top guys, but are in that second or maybe even possibly that third tier. Rewatch them as an area coach, rewatch them as a position coach. If you feel like you need to get another reevaluation on them, put them back on that big board a second time, and let all of these coaches get a chance to go sit down and evaluate. And if there's any major discrepancies in there, we sit down as a staff and we watch those 10 to 15 guys to see if we need to elevate them back up the board, and maybe not move them into that primary list of guys that we have coming on our visits, to the secondary list, to try and get a chance to say, hey, when we go on December and we visit these high schools, go get another set of eyes on this guy, get another chance to get him, and see what we can do to try and bring him onto campus, and see if there's something that we can do to get another really good eval on that student athlete when they get here.
Yeah, it's a good point too, because like sometimes, like you said, they'll have, they might be like secondary, they might have a good junior year, but all of a sudden they pop their senior year, and you're like, whoa, this is a way different evaluation. But it's important that that player is communicating that with the coaches, or else, like you said, you got all these guys and if on your board, and let's say that does happen and a player doesn't communicate that with you guys, and you kind of have your guys at the top and this guy's down here, it might end up falling off, or so I think the big point I want to make here is that as a player, you got to communicate that with coaches. You got to keep coaches updated with where you're at, not just in your highlight tape, but also on your social media, right? Staying in front of the coaches that are following you. Like, so for example, if you like a player, but you're not quite there yet, but if you follow that player on social media and you start seeing this player pop off with some of those clips like you talked about in the beginning, I mean, that could reignite where you are recruiting that player. No, is that not an easy way today, where you and I back in you couldn't do that?
You couldn't do it. No shouting headache, And so, like, I take myself as a personal example there. Like, I played as a little bit as varsity as a sophomore. I played a decent amount as a junior, but I was a 160-pound linebacker as a junior in high school, right? I got to 185 pounds going into my senior year, and the film was a whole heck of a lot better, right? And so I didn't have the ability to put out a 3-game huddle highlight tape of the first 3 games that we played when I was in high school. What these guys like, it's a level of persistence that you have to have of, is this a place that I want to be at? Is this a university that I think is a good fit for me? And if it is, send it out to the coach, send it out to the position coach, send it out to the coach that you might have seen in the high school during the spring semester, send it out to, myself as the head coach, find out who the recruiting coordinator is. Like, those are the 4 people you need to send that 3-game highlight out to once you get a chance to get it done. because we're going to watch it. Like there's going to be some time during the week that we can sit down and say, all right, so this is a guy that we have as a secondary player. Here's his 3-game highlight. We got to watch this again so we can have an understanding of if they have or they haven't gotten better. And that persistence is a good thing because, obviously if you take those strides forward, all of a sudden, I'm not going to lie. These kids are all 2 inches taller and 15 pounds heavier than what they really are in real life and what they put on their Twitter bios. It just is what it is. But if there's things on that film that show you that, you might have had a kid who was, a scholarship.
Don't lie to coaches, guys.
Don't lie, because like at the end of the day, what happens is the vast majority of them do. So like we all just assume that you are. Yeah, it just is what it is, and it's unfortunate, but that's why, like I said, those in-persons, and we get guys on game days, and when we bring them to game days, we don't height and weight them. But I mean, I'm going to have you stand next to the kid that's a red shirt that I know is 6'2.5" because we measured him in on moving day and see if you're actually 6'3". And so like we got to get those things taken care of, but these guys, like these recruits, these guys who are interested in these universities, and we have a lot of them that are interested in our place. Get out there on game day visits. Get your 3-game highlight going. When you show up, make sure that like if you're going to come to a game day visit at McKendree, so like we play Hillsdale on September 6th. You're going to have played at least 2, maybe 3 high school games. We're going to watch that film before you show up when you come to our home game. You got to show us that you've gotten better from what you were your junior year. Or if we have you rated highly, you got to show us that you're still the same sort of player that you were when we rated you highly. And that's the opportunity when we get you in person. We can check off the last couple of those boxes. We can do some personality checks on you. You can walk out of there with an offer for us. And, one thing that I think that we do a really good job of here and what we continue to push forward is when we talk about offers, we talk about offers not just with the kid. Because the kid, I heard you talk about it the other day, the kid's always thinking that it's a full ride. The Division II level, it's very rare that a kid's going to go ahead and get a full just on football. We talk to the parents and tell them all the things that we need to get to the point where we can say, hey, this is exactly what the dollar amount's going to be. And have the parents understand exactly what the process is going to be out from there. And I think that's one thing that with, X and with email, that a lot of the times the kids take their parents out of the equation, but you got to have them back involved because I don't know how many 18-year-olds are going to be able to cut a check to go to college. You got to ask your parents for a little bit of help if you do have to pay a little bit out of pocket, and they're going to have a little bit of a say in it. And then their relationship that they have with that coach is because at the end of the day, what we believe in is this, is that it's the parents' job to get them to 18. It's our job to get them to 22 to 23 years old. And they got to trust us that when their son comes to play football at McKendree, they know that they're getting into a program that's going to make them the best man that they can be when they graduate. That they can trust us as a coaching staff, that we're going to continue the work that they've done as parents up until this point in time. And so, like, as kids, you sort of want to keep some things close to the vest from mom and dad. I did it. I know for a fact I did it. You want to keep some things close to the vest. Well, at the end of the day, you got to have mom and dad involved in that as well because they're the ones that are going to be able to know a little bit more than you are because they got a little bit more, experience with these kind of things and with dealing with us as coaches and people like us, that they're going to be able to say, hey, that's somebody that when they say something to you, they mean it. Or if they say something to you, you got to be a little wary of what they're trying to get across.
Yeah, no, there's a couple really good things there that I want to point out. And one is like, let's just start with the actual getting offered, right? Like I'm a huge fan of the recruiting process for these players is such an amazing opportunity to take them from being, introverted, shy, not great communicators to learning how to reach out to coaches, build relationships with coaches, how to market themselves. These are all skills that they can use not only in college, being a leader on the football team, right? But outside of that, of like, hey, when you're done and you graduate from college, how to actually work your way up the corporate ladder, how to interview for a job, right? And these are things you're teaching them too, right? Because like the odds of them going to the NFL and making $30 million a year are really small. But I'm not saying don't shoot for that. But also like, hey, in the meantime, develop the skills. It's the same thing. Like going from high school to being a star at the college level is literally 0.018%, right? So it's like, shoot for it, do it, because I did. I can't tell people don't shoot for it when I did. You know what I mean? But I went through hell to do it. Not everybody wants to go through hell to do it, and that's fine. Yeah. A lot of players, especially the ones that are connected with me and at least reach out to me in some way, they just want to play at a great football program at a great school that matches where they're at, right? And so that's number one. Number two is like if you do well in school, guys, focus on your grades, because if you do well in school, you can get a Division II football scholarship that's going to cover a percentage. But if you're doing well in school, guys, you're going to have an opportunity where a lot of players, they end up not having to pay much for school, if anything, because they do well in school. So if I could say that, I know the 26s right now and the parents are like, it's a little too late. But guys, like, that's fine for the 28s, 27s. Like, you still like do well in school. And it makes it easier for a head coach like this to say, I've got these two guys. They're equally talented, but this guy, I'm going to have to actually offer less because he can come here and not pay anything for school because he's got such good grades. I want that kid, right? And he comes here and he's willing to like pick up the phone and talk to me. And he shows me that he wants to be at this school for this reason. You start adding that all together. I mean, you tell me, man, as a head coach, it's like, I want that guy. And he's nasty. And he's violent on the field. You know, he might be undersized, but he's violent. Like,
the biggest thing that I think a lot of these guys got to understand is like there's a lot of things that you do to make you not be recruited. There's very few things that you do to get you to be recruited. Like the number one thing for us, like, so we want to get our kids transcripts as quick as we can. If your GPA gets to a point where you're not stackable, it makes it really difficult to recruit you because you're going to cost, and I heard Coach Kilday talk about it the other day. There's 36 scholarships to build out our roster. So if you're going to cost us, 0.7, 0.8, like you're costing us another 2 to 3 football players. So if you're comparable with somebody else and you're stackable because your grades are good, that's a huge one. Another one that obviously we're past all the kids that were in COVID, so we can do a little bit better job of this. Your absences. If you got a lot of absences from your high school, whether they're excused or aren't excused, like you're not going to go to class. If you're not going to go to class, when you graduate, you're not going to go to work, which means you're not going to make the kind of money that you need to. So like those are a lot of the things that we look at is there's a lot of things that just in who you are as a human being can make it difficult for you to be recruited. But if you're doing the right thing, that's the one rule we have here at McKendry. Just do the right thing. If you do the right thing over and over and over again, you'll be surprised at how many opportunities are available to you, not just in terms of being recruited, but in terms of life. Before and after football and before and after college, the opportunities that are just there for you for continuously doing the right thing over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's super true. And like also, I feel like as you said that, it just makes me think like you got to be, be a good person, dude. You know what I mean? Be a good player, be a good person, and like it's doing everything right. I think that's interesting. Like there's a lot of things you could do to not get recruited, and I'm just curious from your perspective because you said that and it really stood out to me. What are some of those things? Like, what are some things that are like off, done?
If I go into the high school or any of our coaches go into the high school, the first thing we're going to do is ask your high school head coach, like, how is he as a person? And if you are button heads with your high school head coach, all right, that's a red flag. Okay, well, that's not going to be the end of it for us. We're going to go and we're going to talk to the counseling office where we're going to be able to get your transcripts from. Obviously, we walk into the front desk. Like, this is the thing that gets us excited as a program. I go to the front desk, I walk in, I say, hey, Jason Rejfek from McKendry Football. I'm here to go and talk to, Coach X, and I want to see these 3 players. When the people at the front desk light up about who you are as a person, we got a quarterback this year who I went to a high school game, and I had parents, I had administrators, we had faculty members who took the time to come up and talk to us to speak glowingly about who this kid was. And it's like, all right, well, you're hitting the ball out of the ballpark. Conversely, a couple of years ago, there was a kid that we thought really highly of as a football player. I went into the school, and you could just see the physical emotion from everybody around them of like, oh, this guy, like, I don't know if you really want to deal with him. He's been a trouble problem in the school. It's those kind of things. So who you are as a person, it's going to be far more important than who you are as a football player. Because, everybody talks about football all the time, but it's being just a small dichotomy of what life is. If you're a good person, you can attract people to be around you. You can have people who are excited to be around you on a day-to-day basis, and you can be what we like to call an energy driver, an uplifter. You're going to get people to want to play with you, play for you at specific positions. You're going to have leadership mindsets. You're going to have the ability to go out there. And, it's one thing that I think is really cool about the game of football. You need 11 guys pulling from the same rope to have success. You watch basketball out there. If you got one really good basketball player, you're going to win more than you lose. If you got one really good football player, you're not going to be very successful. You have to have a bunch of them. And so being able to see those things, like obviously like the absences from school, having issues where you could tell that the people you deal with on a day-to-day basis feel like it's a bear for you to be around, having it where you got teammates or you got, like, so like one thing that we really do a good job of, I believe here, is that if we get a kid from school, we're going to ask that kid about another kid at that school that we're going to recruit. Like, hey, what's the quality of that young man? We have a kid for us this year that's going to be a leader for us that had really, really strong things to say about a kid that we recruited in this class. And we went heavily on that kid because his character fit what the university was and what we're going to be as a program. Because of the fact that we knew that, like, hey, he might have been a younger guy, but he resonated with this kid who was a captain on the team of that year. And so those kind of things and being able to use our players as our best recruiters is a thing that I think is a huge help for us as a program and helps everybody out, because that character and who you are as a person is going to really be where you're able to build yourself into what that community is as a football program, wherever you choose to go to.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So I love it, dude. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this. I know parents get a lot of value out of this. So for you, what's the next step for you? I mean, this is obviously your first full year. You come at it from a cool perspective because you're a player. For parents listening, that are grading at that D2, FCS level, what would you like to share with them about the program that, maybe they are a Texas kid, but they look at this program, they might not be in the right St. Louis area, but they're really interested in the program because of X, right? There's something about the school or something that they're interested in, there's a program there or something, and they're like, hey, I'm really interested in this school, and also they want to play for someone like you that's been a former player, right? What would you want to share with them about, hey, this is, and obviously the kids that are more in the region too, but also, like I said, maybe from Texas or California or Florida, we get a lot of those kids, and they are interested in going to play for the right coach, for a coach that has the right values that they see fit. What would you share with them about, not only getting on your team's radar, but also about the program that would really say, hey, I want to be a part of something like that?
So, obviously here at McKendry, if you're a computer science major, we have guys walking out of there with a computer science or cybersecurity degree making six figures. So that helps. Obviously, that helps
Cybersecurity,
a lot. That's not a bad deal. Like that program's jumped through leaps and bounds. We're a university. It obviously is about 12 to 1,300 students right now, continuously growing. We're going to have an incoming class of close to 500 to 600 kids. So in this times where small schools are sort of, struggling a little bit, we have a lot of growth that's happening right now at our university. So that's something that's really exciting about it. We're just finishing building a brand new science center. There's a lot of really exciting things that we got going on. But at the end of the day, I played for Carl Pelker. Coach Pelker was somebody who really just wanted to make sure that we instilled the mindset of building good young men. If you choose to come to McKendry, we're going to win a lot of football games, not because we're the smartest guys with X's and O's and not because of, anything else that we have going on, besides the fact that we're going to focus on these three things. We're going to build you to be a quality young man. You're going to leave here as a better human being than when you came here. We're going to focus on how to help you handle all of those tough situations that you've ever been a part of. Here at McKendry, we're very unique. 20 minutes to the east of us is St. Louis, so you're right in the middle of the city. 20 minutes to the west of us, you're in the middle of west of us is St. Louis. To the east of us, you're in the middle of nowhere, you're in farmer country. So we got guys from Chicago, we got people from vastly different socioeconomic backgrounds. We got country kids, we got city kids, we got suburban kids, we got everything and everything you need. The diversity that we have allows you for what the real world is going to be like nowadays. You're going to walk out of this place and you're going to say, hey, there's nothing that showed me at McKendry that I'm not going to see when I'm in the real world. So you understand how to have those difficult conversations. You understand how to build those relationships with people, and you're able to go ahead and understand how to get yourself into the workforce and be able to work with anybody and everybody from any different background that you can think of. What we have here is a community. And I think that that's a huge thing at the collegiate level. Every single head coach that you hear talking about it, about how successful the program is, there's a buy-in to the local community. Our town of Lebanon, Illinois loves the university. They know that it's going to be a place that when the university is successful, the town's successful. Our campus is built up of people like myself, McKendree graduates. So they're going to bend over backwards to make sure that your experience is second to none, that you have anything and everything that you need to be a successful student, a successful athlete, and a successful person. And then obviously what we're going to do do here as a football program is we're going to challenge you to do the hard things. You know, I think that in today's day and age, a lot of people are looking for the easiest way out. We're going to have you push through the hard. We're going to make it so that, you know, college football is hard again. You know, it's one of those things that I'm sure you went through when you were going through your journey at Ole Miss and at all the other places that you had been to throughout your process. Like, it's not easy, but life's not easy. So if you can push through that hard, you can adapt and overcome to those situations. There's nothing that life can throw at you that you're not going to be successful. And the relationships that we build with our student athletes, you know, that's what I think is the most important thing to every single one of us coaches here. We won't hire a coach if they don't have the ability to relate to some of these young men, because the world's changing and they got to be able to come to us with any and all of the problems that they have and know that we're going to be in that corner with them. There's not a fight that you're going to have that you're not going to have a McKendry football coach in the same corner with you, fighting it out with you to make sure that we're going to find a way for you to be successful. And you know that with today's world of what college football is, with the transfer portal and all that stuff, we've done a really good job of keeping guys here because they know that we care about them and we love them and we're going to love them hard and we're going to take care of them as much as we can. And we're going to tell them the things that they need to hear more so than things that they want to hear.
Yeah, I like that, dude. Things you need to hear, not necessarily you want to hear. But the big thing that you said there is relationships, right? And everything that you had mentioned that you do with these you know, young men is to set them up for life, right? These are life skills, right? And that's one thing, like, I think, you know, you and I have different professions, but we do the same thing. I just hit them a little younger, but it's like, dude, we're taking these 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old, you know, kids essentially and being like, dude, we got a little bit of a confidence crisis. We got a little bit of a communication crisis going on right here with these young men. And so we're really trying to instill that and then pass them to someone like you, brother, that like, hey, now they're going to be a part of a football program. We're going to take care of these kids. We're going to teach them we're going to build on those and teach them these life skills that are going to set them up. Because if not, man, I hate to say this. This is kind of an off topic, not really about college football. But if we don't get this younger generation to like communicate better and more confidently, especially like young men, man, there's a confidence issue going on. We're in for a world of hurt.
You could say whatever you want to on this thing. You can say it when you're face to face.
Yeah. And you could hide behind.
Yeah. And so like that's one thing that I think that what we have done here is a really good thing. There's conflict, and that's the beautiful thing about football. Like, and I tell the kids all the time, you have 6 seconds of violence. Like all the anger that you could possibly have, you could put it out to every 6 seconds that you have out there on the football field, right? You got to be able to take it to where you can take that deep breath and look somebody else in the eyes and understand that, like, hey, that's on the football field. Right. But out here, we can still solve our problems with words. We can build from there. I mean, like, you can't swipe your life through until you find a wife. You got to have hard conversations. You got to meet them all. Like, we just got to, we encourage our young men and we create opportunities for them to truly have those conversations face to face. And, you know, like anybody else, there's going to be issues with housing, with public safety, with all that kind of stuff. But we don't just let them sit in the back and listen to us talk as coaches. We sit down there next to them, make them have those hard conversations, help guide them through it, because that's what life's going to be like. And you can't just send emails. You can't just send Twitters. You got to actually have them face to face. And the more often that we can make these young men do it, the better success that they're going to have once they walk out of here and they get into the real world where they're going to have those on a day-to-day basis.
Love it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know, like I said, I think you provide a lot of value for a lot of people out there, and wishing you nothing but success this upcoming season. And you're about to start training camp, so
we start
go time.
Yeah, we start Saturday, so we got to get this thing rolling here in a little bit.
But the fact that you jumped on, man, means a lot, and I know it means a lot to all the parents and players that are out there trying to figure this thing out. So it's really good, man, that you took the time to do it. So appreciate it.
Yeah, greatly appreciate the opportunity. Anytime we get to talk about our program and anything we can do to help any of these young men out, we're willing to do it anytime you need it. Just reach out and let us know.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Scholarship Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And for more free resources, or if you're interested in working with us, visit gonextplay.com. Until next time.